The Galactic Empire stood tall, its power unquestioned across the stars. For centuries, the Empire had expanded, conquering planet after planet. No one had dared challenge their rule. Their ships were massive, their weapons unmatched, and their soldiers ruthless. The Empire believed they were destined to rule the entire galaxy. They controlled countless star systems, and their authority spread far and wide, like an unstoppable wave. In the Emperor's Grand Palace, a meeting was taking place. The leaders of the Empire gathered around a massive round table, their faces serious, their minds focused on the next conquest. The Empire was always looking for new worlds to dominate. They had recently set their sights on a distant region of space, a place where no one had ventured in hundreds of years. Reports from their scouts had brought back strange news. The humans, who had once been a primitive species on a small planet, had begun to expand beyond their home world. The Empire had paid little attention at first. After all, they had seen countless civilizations rise and fall. But now, things were different. "You've all seen the reports," said Commander Kale, a high-ranking officer in the Empire's fleet. "The humans have formed a fleet. They're traveling through the stars with ships we've never seen before. No one knows how they got such technology. They're far more advanced than we expected." The room fell silent. For the first time in many years, the leaders of the Empire looked uneasy. They had been the galaxy's dominant force for so long that the thought of anyone challenging them seemed ridiculous. But the humans, they were an unknown. No one knew what they were capable of. Their fleet wasn't large, but it was well equipped, and the way they operated was unlike anything the Empire had encountered. "It doesn't matter how advanced they are," said High General Vorn, slamming his fist onto the table. "We have the power. Their fleet is nothing compared to ours. We will crush them." Commander Kale hesitated. "Perhaps, but there's something strange about their tactics. They don't seem to think like any other species. They don't follow the same rules. We might be underestimating them." General Vorn scoffed. "Underestimate them at your own risk. I'll send the fleet out immediately. We'll destroy them before they can even think about threatening us." The leaders of the Empire nodded, agreeing with Vorn's decision. They were confident, too sure of their power. They didn't fully understand the human fleet, but they didn't care. To them, the humans were just another obstacle to crush. As the meeting ended and the leaders departed, they couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. The Empire had never faced a challenge like this before. And deep down, some of them wondered if they were walking into a trap they couldn't escape from. This part introduces the Galactic Empire's dominance and sets the stage for the arrival of the human fleet, building suspense and intrigue for what's to come. Let me know if you'd like to adjust anything. The Empire was confident, the fleet was ready, and their commanders were eager to show the humans their place in the galaxy. They had prepared for months, believing this would be another easy victory. No one could stand against the might of the Empire, not even the strange fleet of humans. But something felt different this time. The Empire's scouts had reported that the humans' fleet had entered the galaxy's outer regions, and the ships were unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. They weren't huge battleships or mighty destroyers. They were sleek and fast, moving with a grace that was almost unnatural. The ships seemed to blend into the darkness of space, as if they were made to hide. "We will track them down," Commander Kale said, as he addressed his fleet's officers. "There's no way they can outrun us. We'll show them what happens when they challenge the Empire." His voice was confident, but even he felt a small flicker of doubt. What if the humans were more than just a minor threat? What if they had something the Empire wasn't prepared for? Kale pushed those thoughts aside. He was a seasoned warrior, and he had seen countless enemies fall before him. This would be no different. The first encounter came sooner than expected. The Empire's fleet had been chasing the humans for days, but they had always stayed just out of reach, hiding in the vastness of space. Then, without warning, the human ships appeared in front of them, silently emerging from the darkness. "They're here," General Vorn said, his voice cold and commanding. "Prepare to engage." The Empire's fleet moved into position, ready to crush this tiny human resistance. But as the first shots rang out, something strange happened. The human ships didn't act like any other enemy the Empire had fought before. They didn't just attack head-on. Instead, they moved quickly, dodging and weaving through the Empire's fire with unnatural speed. For every shot the Empire fired, the humans seemed to be one step ahead. Their ships turned on a dime, changing direction with precision, as if they knew exactly where the enemy's fire would land. And when the humans struck, their weapons were powerful, piercing the Empire's ships with devastating accuracy. "What is this?" Commander Kale muttered under his breath, watching the battle unfold. The humans' technology was unlike anything they had expected. The Empire had always relied on sheer force, but this enemy was elusive, unpredictable. The battle raged for hours. Despite the Empire's overwhelming numbers, the humans fought with a precision that left their attackers confused and disoriented. The Empire's flagship was hit hard, its shields failing under the constant barrage of human fire. The mighty Empire fleet, which had once crushed entire civilizations with ease, was now struggling to keep up with a fleet half its size. Finally, as the sun rose on the battlefield, the Empire's forces began to retreat. The human ships didn't pursue. They didn't need to. The message had been sent. The Empire had underestimated their enemies. And now, they would pay the price. The humans had won their first battle. And the Empire had learned that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. This part sets the stage for the first clash between the humans and the Empire, showing humanity's surprising strength and the Empire's growing confusion. It builds suspense as the Empire realizes it's facing an enemy unlike any other. Let me know if you'd like any changes. The Empire had never been defeated like this before. It had always been the dominant force, and its fleets had crushed countless enemies. But now, the humans had shown them something the Empire hadn't anticipated: a new kind of warfare. A kind of warfare that wasn't about sheer power but strategy and precision. In the aftermath of the battle, Commander Kale stood on the bridge of the Empire's flagship, staring out at the wreckage of the battlefield. Ships from the Empire floated lifeless in space, debris scattered across the stars. The once proud fleet was battered, its pride shattered. His mind raced. How had the humans done it? "Report," Kale demanded, turning sharply to his officers. "Commander," said Lieutenant Orl, one of his most trusted officers, "the human ships, they're gone. They didn't pursue us after we retreated. They simply vanished into the darkness of space. We lost 40% of our fleet in that battle, more than we've lost in the last 100 years of war." Kale clenched his fists, frustration building inside him. This cannot be. We are the Empire. We are invincible. But as the officers around him remained silent, Kale knew deep down that something had changed. The humans weren't like any other species they had faced. They didn't follow the usual rules of war. They didn't fight to overwhelm. They fought to outsmart and outmaneuver. And that was something the Empire had not been prepared for. Meanwhile, on the human side, the crew of the Indomitable gathered in their command room. Captain Lyra, a brilliant tactician and leader, stood at the front, looking over the reports from their victory. "We did it," she said quietly, a hint of pride in her voice. "But this is just the beginning. The Empire will not let us win so easily." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Dren, nodded. "They'll come after us harder now. We've made them angry. And when they retaliate, we need to be ready." Lyra nodded thoughtfully. She had always known this day would come, the day when humanity would rise against the Empire's tyranny. But she also understood the gravity of their actions. The Empire wasn't a force to be taken lightly, and if they wanted to win, they had to stay one step ahead at all times. "Keep the fleet in motion," Lyra ordered. "We'll need to stay unpredictable. No single battle is enough. We need to make them question everything they thought they knew about us." As the crew dispersed to carry out their orders, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the start of a much bigger conflict. The humans had shown the Empire that they could fight back, but the Empire wasn't going to stop until it had crushed this rebellion. The first clash had ended, but the war was far from over. And the humans had just begun to show the Empire that they were more than just a minor annoyance. They were a force of nature. This part highlights the aftermath of the first battle, showing the Empire's frustration and confusion, while also showing the humans' strategic advantage and the calm determination of their leaders. It sets up the growing tension for the next phase of the conflict. Let me know if you'd like any changes. The Empire had always believed its strongholds were invincible. They had fortified worlds, heavily armed and defended, where no enemy could breach their defenses. One of these worlds was Zarna, a massive planet filled with Empire soldiers and military installations. It was home to one of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy. The Empire had used Zarna as a base of operations for years, and they thought no one could touch it. But the humans had other plans. The Indomitable and its fleet moved silently through space, their engines barely making a sound. Captain Lyra stood at the helm of her flagship, staring at the blue and green planet that loomed in front of them. She knew this would be a dangerous mission, but it was necessary. If they could take down Zarna, they could shake the Empire's confidence. It was a risk they had to take. "Are we sure about this?" Lieutenant Dren asked, his voice filled with concern. "This is one of their strongest planets. We can't afford to make a mistake." Lyra looked over at him, her expression calm. "We're ready. We've planned for this. The Empire is arrogant. They think their fortresses are impenetrable. But they've never faced us before. We have the element of surprise, and we have something they don't: determination." The fleet moved into position. Their ships spread out in a formation that allowed them to strike from multiple angles. Lyra had studied the planet's defenses for weeks, looking for weaknesses. The Empire had put all its resources into defending the planet, but they had made one mistake. They had underestimated the humans' ability to adapt. The humans didn't just attack head-on. Instead, they launched a series of stealth attacks. Small, agile ships moved past the planet's outer defenses, disabling communication towers and sneaking into military bases. It was chaos for the Empire. Their commanders on the ground were blindsided. They had no idea what was happening. As the battle raged, the Empire's forces scrambled to mount a defense. The Empire's ships tried to fight back, but they couldn't match the speed and precision of the human fleet. Every move the Empire made, the humans countered with efficiency. One by one, the Empire's key military installations fell. The once impenetrable fortress began to crumble. Lyra stood watching the unfolding scene on the command deck. "We're almost there," she said, her voice steady. "Once we take down the last defense array, we'll have control of the planet." But just as they thought they were about to win, the Empire's backup fleet arrived, led by General Vorn himself. He was determined to crush the humans and save Zarna at any cost. The battle shifted in favor of the Empire as the reinforcements joined the fray. But the humans were prepared. Lyra's fleet launched one final surprise attack, disabling the Empire's flagship with a well-placed strike. General Vorn's forces began to panic. The Empire's retreat was inevitable. As the Empire fled, the humans took control of Zarna. The Empire's once secure planet was now in human hands. The message was clear. Humanity was not just fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. This part shows the humans' successful attack on a key Empire stronghold, demonstrating their strategic thinking and determination. It also sets the stage for the Empire's growing frustration and the escalation of the conflict. Let me know if you'd like any changes. The loss of Zarna sent shockwaves throughout the Empire. The once untouchable military fortress was now in the hands of humanity, and no one had expected it. The leaders of the Empire had always considered their strength unbreakable, but now they were questioning everything. In the Grand War Room of the Imperial Palace, the top commanders and politicians gathered. The room was filled with tension. The high-ranking officials, usually calm and composed, were visibly rattled. The walls, once adorned with maps of their latest conquests, now felt like they were closing in on them. "We cannot let this continue," General Vorn said, his voice tight with frustration. "The humans have humiliated us. Zarna was meant to be an example, our strength on display. And now, they've turned it into a symbol of failure. If we don't act quickly, the entire galaxy will lose faith in us." "General, this was not just a loss, it was a disaster," High Commander Izor replied, his voice cold and sharp. "The humans are more advanced than we realized. They think and fight differently. Our usual tactics won't work against them. We must adjust our strategy or risk losing everything." "Adjust?" Vorn scoffed. "What do you mean by that? We are the Empire. We have the resources. We have the power. We need to crush them, not adapt. We need to remind them who rules this galaxy." But even as Vorn spoke, he could feel a knot of unease in his stomach. He had seen the human fleet in action. They weren't just survivors. They were innovators, capable of thinking on their feet, of using their technology in ways the Empire hadn't expected. The room fell silent. The leaders of the Empire knew they had to make a decision. The humans were no longer an insignificant threat. They had proven themselves capable of defeating the Empire's most powerful forces, and the galaxy was watching. "I agree with High Commander Izor," said Minister Kalen, a strategic expert. "We need to change our approach. The Empire is strong, but it's not invincible. The humans are playing a different game, one we're not prepared for. They fight with purpose, with creativity. We need to understand how they think before we strike again." Vorn slammed his fist on the table. "We don't have time to study them. We must act now. Every second we wait, they get stronger. And soon, it will be too late to stop them." "Vorn, your anger clouds your judgment," Izor said firmly. "The Empire has never been defeated because we adapt and learn. If we rush into battle blindly, we will only make things worse." After a long pause, the Emperor, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. His voice was calm, but there was a sharpness to it. "We will strike again, but we will do it wisely. We will take a more measured approach. The humans have shown that they can outmaneuver us. We must learn from this failure, not repeat it." The leaders in the room exchanged uncertain glances. For the first time in a long while, the Empire was uncertain of its next move. The human fleet had shaken their confidence. The once mighty Empire, now caught in a struggle against a foe they couldn't fully understand, was beginning to show cracks. The war had only just begun, and the outcome was far from certain. This part highlights the growing panic among the Empire's leadership and their internal struggle over how to deal with humanity's unexpected strength. The tension continues to build as the Empire realizes it's not the unstoppable force it once thought it was. "Let me know if you'd like to make any adjustments." The humans had made their point. The Empire was shaken, and the galaxy began to take notice. But for all the damage humanity had done, the war was far from over. The Empire's leaders were determined to fight back, but they now knew they were facing an enemy that could think outside the box, an enemy they couldn't predict. In the dark corridors of the Indomitable, Captain Lyra stood alone, gazing at the stars through the viewport. It had been a victory, yes, but a small one. The humans had proven they could win battles, but the real challenge lay ahead. The Empire was too powerful to be defeated easily. "We can't keep fighting like this," Lyra said softly to herself. "We need something more." Lieutenant Dren, her second in command, entered the room and stood next to her. "You're right, Captain. The Empire will retaliate, and when they do, we'll need a weapon to tip the scales in our favor." Lyra turned to face him. "I have an idea. It's risky, but if it works, it might give us the edge we need." "What is it?" Dren asked, intrigued. "We've been underestimating what humanity is capable of. We've been relying on our ships and tactics, But there's something the Empire doesn't know about us. Something they can't see. The weapon isn't in our ships or technology. It's in us. Dren raised an eyebrow. In us? You're talking about a new kind of weapon. Lyra nodded. It's not a weapon in the traditional sense. It's something far more powerful. It's our will, our determination to survive. We've fought to prove we belong here. But now we need to show the Empire that we're not just another species. We're humans. And that's our strength. Dren paused for a moment, considering her words. You want to use our ingenuity and resilience as the weapon. That's right, Lyra said. We've always adapted, always survived. While the Empire relies on brute force and their endless resources, we rely on our minds, our ability to think differently. We'll use that against them. The plan was simple but risky. The human fleet had developed a new technology, something that the Empire had never seen before. It wasn't a new kind of weapon or ship, but a device that could disrupt the Empire's communication systems, rendering their fleets disorganized and chaotic. If they could use this device to disable the Empire's massive command network, the humans could cripple their operations. But there was a problem. The device was experimental, and its activation could be dangerous. It had never been tested on such a large scale. If they failed, the humans would lose their advantage, and the Empire would strike back harder than ever. We don't have a choice, Lyra said, her voice firm. We either do this and win, or we risk losing everything. The crew of the Indomitable gathered as Lyra gave the final orders. It was time to launch the device. They would need to infiltrate the Empire's communication hub, the heart of their fleet's command network, and activate the device that would disrupt their entire system. As the humans moved into position, Lyra couldn't help but feel the weight of the decision. If the device worked, they could cripple the Empire's ability to fight back. If it failed, the consequences would be dire. But humanity had always been good at surviving against the odds. This time would be no different. This part introduces the human fleet's new secret weapon, showing their creativity and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. It also sets the stage for a high-stakes mission that could turn the tide of the war. Let me know if you'd like to adjust anything. The human fleet was ready. The mission was set. Captain Lyra stood in the command room of the Indomitable, her eyes scanning the stars on the holographic display before her. The weight of the upcoming mission hung heavy in the air. This was their chance to turn the tide of the war, to cripple the Empire's ability to fight back. But the risks were immense. If they failed, humanity could lose everything. The crew had gathered for the final briefing. The room buzzed with energy, but there was also a quiet tension. Everyone knew what was at stake. Listen up, Lyra said, her voice cutting through the murmur of voices. This is it. Our mission will determine the future of this war. If we succeed, the Empire's command network will be in chaos. If we fail, we'll be facing an enemy stronger than ever. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Dren, stood beside her, his face calm but serious. We've studied the Empire's communication hubs. We know where they are weakest. Our infiltration team is ready. But this isn't just about technology. This is about how we think, how we use our minds to outsmart them. We've always been good at that. Lyra nodded. Exactly. The Empire is predictable. They rely on strength and numbers, but we're not like them. We rely on our ingenuity and our ability to think differently. We've already beaten them once. We can do it again. There was a moment of silence as the crew absorbed her words. The humans had been underestimated by the Empire for so long. They were a small, relatively young species in the grand scheme of the galaxy, yet they had already shown the Empire that they could not be ignored. Now, with this new plan, humanity had the chance to prove once and for all that they could dominate, not just survive. One of the crew members, Lieutenant Nora, raised her hand. Captain, how will we know if the device works? Lyra turned to face her. We won't know until we activate it. Once the device is in place, it will send out a pulse that disrupts their communication systems. If it works, The Empire's fleet will be thrown into disarray. We won't have much time to react, but we'll be ready. But what if the Empire sees us coming? Asked Sergeant Ivor, the mission's lead technician. They'll be expecting us to try something after the loss of Zarna. They'll expect a direct attack, Lyra replied. But that's not what we're going to do. We'll use the same strategy we used before. Surprise. We'll be quick, efficient, and above all, silent. They won't know we're there until it's too late. Everyone in the room nodded in agreement. The humans had learned a lot from the Empire's tactics. They knew that direct confrontation was dangerous, but they also knew how to strike at the heart of their enemy. The humans were no longer just fighting to survive. They were fighting to dominate. We all know what we're doing, Lyra continued. We've trained for this. We've prepared. Now it's time to make history for humanity. The room fell silent again, the weight of her words settling over everyone. They were ready. No one doubted that. They had faced down impossible odds before and had emerged victorious. This mission wasn't just about a single battle. It was about proving to the Empire and the entire galaxy that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Lyra took a deep breath and turned to the crew. Let's get to work. This part highlights the strategic planning and determination of the human crew. They are focused, ready, and united in their mission, which adds to the suspense and anticipation for the next phase of the conflict. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments. The humans had made their move. The Indomitable and the rest of the fleet were now deep within enemy territory, heading straight for the heart of the Empire's command hub. The device was ready. The stakes couldn't be higher. Captain Lyra stood at the helm of her ship, her hands gripping the controls. She stared out into the vastness of space, her mind focused on the mission ahead. They had planned every detail, but no one could predict what would happen once the device was activated. If it worked, it could disrupt the Empire's entire communication system. If it failed, they would be outmatched by an enemy that was not only stronger, but relentless. Report, Lyra ordered, her voice steady. Approaching target zone, Lieutenant Dren replied. Empire's fleet is in range. We're on course for the communication hub. Good, Lyra said. We've come this far. No turning back now. The fleet moved swiftly, their ships hidden among the shadows of distant asteroids, avoiding detection. The Empire was distracted by the earlier battles and did not expect another strike. The humans had learned to use their surroundings to their advantage, staying out of sight until the last moment. As they drew closer to the hub, the tension on the Indomitable was palpable. The crew was silent, each person focused on their task. The plan was simple but dangerous. Infiltrate the heart of the Empire's command, place the device, and get out before the Empire could respond. Suddenly, the alert blared. They've detected us, shouted Sergeant Ivor. Shields are being scanned. They know we're here. Lyra's heart raced. They had been discovered earlier than expected, but they couldn't stop now. All units, prepare for impact. We fight our way through. The Empire's ships appeared on the scanners, massive warships bristling with weapons. The humans didn't have the firepower to match them directly, but they had speed, precision, and their minds. They could still win this if they stayed focused. As the Indomitable darted through the Empire's defense line, the Empire's ships opened fire. Energy blasts shot past, narrowly missing the human ship. The human ships responded in kind, striking with calculated shots aimed at weak points in the Empire's defense. We're almost there, Lyra shouted over the noise of battle. Deploy the device. Sergeant Ivor and his team moved quickly, activating the device. It hummed to life, its complex systems locking into place. The device would send out a powerful signal, scrambling the Empire's communication grid and causing their ships to lose coordination. But the Empire was not about to give up without a fight. Their fleet focused its full firepower on the Indomitable, determined to destroy it before the humans could succeed. Device activated. Ivor yelled. It's working. A pulse of energy rippled through space, and the Empire's fleet suddenly faltered. Ships that had been working in perfect unison were now drifting apart, confused and disorganized. Commanders shouted orders, but it was too late. The disruption had begun. Lyra's face lit up with a triumphant smile. Now, finish them off. With the Empire's communication systems in disarray, the humans launched their final offensive. They struck swiftly and decisively, targeting the Empire's flagship and other key ships. The once proud fleet was falling apart, unable to react quickly enough. In the chaos, the Empire's fleet started to retreat. They were beaten, unable to hold their ground. The humans had done it. They had crippled the Empire's ability to respond. The battle was over. The humans had won. But Lyra knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. This part showcases the humans' final push to activate the device and disrupt the Empire's communication, leading to their victory in this phase of the war. The tension and excitement build as the humans successfully outmaneuver the Empire. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments. The victory was swift, but the impact was far-reaching. The Empire's fleet, once a symbol of unyielding power, was now a shattered force. It had taken the humans only hours to break through the Empire's most fortified defenses. The communication disruption had thrown the entire Empire into chaos. Without their command network, the ships were stranded, lost, and disorganized. Captain Lyra stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the Empire's retreat. Her eyes scanned the stars as enemy ships began to scatter, some retreating, others simply floating aimlessly in space. It had been a decisive blow. "We did it," Lieutenant Dren said, his voice filled with awe. "We've shattered their command." Lyra nodded but didn't let herself get lost in the moment. This is just the first step. The Empire may be weak right now, but they'll regroup. We need to push forward while they're vulnerable. "Agreed," Dren replied. "But we've crippled their strength. The galaxy will see that the Empire is not invincible. It's a turning point." On the Empire side, however, the atmosphere was one of panic. The Emperor's once confident advisors were now scrambling. The retreat had been humiliating, and they couldn't ignore the fact that the human fleet had outmaneuvered them with precision and strategy that no one had expected. "We've lost control of our fleet," General Vorn muttered, his voice hoarse with frustration. He slammed his fist onto the table in the war room. "How could this happen? We were prepared for every scenario, except this one." The high-ranking officials, once so confident in their plans, now looked lost. Their ships had been disabled by a simple device, and the Empire's vast military might have been brought to its knees by a force they had barely understood. The loss of Zarna had been bad enough, but the chaos caused by the human fleet was worse. "I told you," High Commander Iser said, his voice grim. "This is the consequence of underestimating them. The humans are unlike anything we faced before. They think, they adapt, they don't fight like the others." The Emperor sat in his chair, staring into the void outside the windows of his palace. He had ruled for centuries, and the thought of being defeated was almost unimaginable. Yet, here they were, on the brink of collapse. "What are our options?" the Emperor asked, his voice quieter than it had ever been. "We can't fight them head-on," Izor said. "We've lost too much. But there's still a chance to regroup. We can retreat to the outer rim, gather more forces, and rebuild. We might be able to come back from this, but it will take time." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. He hated the idea of retreat, but he knew it was the only option. "Then we will retreat. But make no mistake, we will not forget this. We will return stronger, and we will crush these humans." Back in the human fleet, Lyra knew this victory had put them in a strong position, but it wasn't the end of the war. The Empire was far from finished. Still, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. They had proven that humanity wasn't just a small, weak species. It was a force that could change the course of history. "We've made a mark," Lyra said, looking out into the stars. "But the fight isn't over. It's only just begun." This part shows the immediate consequences of the human fleet's victory, with the Empire in disarray and the humans realizing that they've only just begun to challenge the Empire's dominance. The tension continues to build as both sides prepare for what comes next. Let me know if you'd like any changes. The stars stretched out in front of the human fleet as they drifted through space, victorious yet cautious. The Indomitable and its sister ships had been instrumental in the battle that had crippled the Empire. But even as Captain Lyra and her crew celebrated, they knew the fight wasn't over. The Empire was retreating, but it wasn't defeated. The war was far from finished. Lyra stood on the bridge, her hands resting on the console. She gazed out at the vast expanse of space, thinking about everything that had happened. Humanity had faced impossible odds, but against all expectations, they had prevailed. It was more than just a victory in a battle. It was a statement. "We've sent a message," Lieutenant Dren said, stepping beside her. "The Empire knows we're not going to back down. We've shown them what we're capable of." Lyra nodded, her eyes hardening. "But the war isn't over yet. The Empire will rebuild. They'll come back stronger, and we need to be ready for that. This victory gives us hope, but it's not the end." The human fleet wasn't large, but they were fierce. They had learned to fight in ways the Empire couldn't predict, to use their creativity and ingenuity to their advantage. And most importantly, they had proven that the human spirit, unbroken, unyielding, was something the Empire couldn't destroy. "The question is, what's next?" Dren asked. "We wait," Lyra replied. "We fortify our position, and we prepare. The Empire will regroup, but we'll be here, ready for whatever comes." But even as she spoke, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something bigger. Humanity had just proven that it could hold its own against a galactic empire, but now they had to keep proving it. They had taken the first step in what would be a long, difficult journey. A journey that would define the future of the galaxy. Back on the Empire's side, the leaders had retreated to their strongholds, regrouping and making plans to regain their control. The loss had been humiliating, but it had also been a wake-up call. They had underestimated humanity, and now they knew better. The humans had the potential to change the galaxy, and that was a threat the Empire couldn't ignore. The Emperor sat in his chambers, staring out at the dark expanse of space. The rebellion had been unexpected, but now he understood the true nature of the humans. They were relentless, they were creative, and they were dangerous. "We will not let this stand," the Emperor muttered to himself. "We will rebuild, and we will crush them." But deep down, even the Emperor knew the truth. Humanity had already changed the course of history. No matter how much the Empire tried to regain control, the humans had proven they would not be silenced. They would not be crushed. For the first time in a long while, the Emperor doubted his empire's invincibility. Back with the humans, Lyra looked at her crew, seeing their faces filled with determination. They had won the first battle, but the war was far from over. The message was clear. Humanity had arrived, and they were here to stay. No longer would they be ignored. No longer would they be underestimated. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity was ready to lead the way. This part brings the story to a close, showing humanity's resilience and the long road ahead, while also hinting at the ongoing challenge the Empire will pose. It leaves a sense of hope for the humans and sets the stage for future conflicts. Let me know if you'd like any changes.